All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. Here come the gimmicks again. Dazn and Eddie Hearn are turning into the gimmick factory. We have on a Thursday night a fight with Demetrius Andrade and his mandatory, Tevin Farmer and JoJo Diaz, and a co-main event of a YouTuber and a soccer player. It's just ridiculous. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also special thank you to everybody that's joined the channel and everybody that is comes by and goes to the Patreon. In 2020, we're going to have a much more high quality Patreon page and with a lot more content. I think you guys are really going to love it. Thank you guys for supporting the Patreon page. Also, everybody that comes by the live streams, thank you so much for your support in the super chats and the cash apps for supporting the channel. And make sure you're there Sunday mornings, 8 a.m. for OG Boxing Talk with myself and my co-hosts, Blood Boxing, KQKC Boxing, Trap House, and my man, Curtis Anderson, the boxing historian. All right, man. Dazn came to the United States with a ton of money to spend. And they were going to sign all these fighters from the PBC. They were going to sign away. They were going to give us these great mega fights. And because they had so much money that they were going to put forward, and it's just not panned out. Okay, it's not panned out. There are some fights that go on Dazn that are good fights, right? There are some fights that are good fights. There are no fights over there that have taken place that are just, I must see. This is Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford. This is Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, and I get to watch it for $10. This is, haven't seen it. Have not seen it. Seen some good fights. We've seen some good fights. I won't lie and say we haven't seen some good fights. We've seen some World Boxing Super Series cards that were very entertaining. We saw Josh Taylor versus Regis Prograis. We've seen Monster Inoue versus Nonito Donaire, which is funny because it got Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year because and this is my opinion, obviously, because a hype job went pop. It got Fight of the Year. I don't understand that. But regardless, it was a good fight. There were other fights. There was an accident that happened in the heavyweight division called Andy Ruiz versus Andy Ruiz versus Anthony Joshua. Right? There were some good fights, but nothing like this. Oh, pay-per-view is dead. We're going to take over boxing because we're going to give you the best fights that you can possibly be made for $10. Right? First of all, the price went from 10 to 20 and the fights have not materialized. And seems what they're doing now, what Eddie Hearn and these guys are doing now, is they're, along with some good fights that you get to see, right? Some good fights. They're good fights that you get to see. You're now getting this trend of having these gimmicks go off, okay? Now, this fight, that what they're doing with Demetrius Andrade, to me is a gimmick, right? The whole fight card is another gimmick. Just like the last fight card that I saw on Dazn was a gimmick. Julio Cesar Chavez versus Daniel Jacobs was a gimmick. They're using the name of Julio Cesar Chavez, who shouldn't even be fighting. Okay? I don't think Julio Cesar Chavez should be fighting in a boxing ring at all, let alone fight against Daniel Jacobs, because that was an accident waiting to happen. That was an accident waiting to happen. Because Daniel Jacobs is a far superior fighter to Julio Cesar Chavez. He's also a far more active fighter than Julio Cesar Chavez. And quite honestly, it showed in the fight because Julio Cesar Chavez started getting the tar beaten out of him and he quit. Okay, and as a result of him quitting in the wrong place, in front of the wrong people, looking like a snow cone, they get barraged with beer cans and popcorn and all and shoes getting thrown at him. And that thing could have easily turned into it could have, and obviously I did not foresee that, but it could have turned, that gimmick could have turned into something tragic that happened outside the ring. Inside the ring, it definitely could have happened to something that was tragic because you had a guy that had no business in there fighting a guy of Daniel Jacobs' caliber to begin with. Okay, so that was a gimmick in the way that I see it. It was something that where they tried to get cute. It wasn't like a high level fight. It wasn't that was not Danny Jacobs versus Demetrius Andrade. That's a high level fight. That's something, if you say, oh, I'm a boxing fan, that's a fight that I want to see. But strangely enough, those are the type of fights that DAZN should be easily be able to make, but they don't make it. Instead of making the Demetrius Andrade Danny Jacobs fight for the WBO 160-pound belt, they pull Julio Cesar Chavez out of mothballs and put a fight on with him that turns into an absolute ridiculous joke just to pander, I suppose, to Mexican fans. That's a gimmick. The gimmick before that was clearly Paul Logan, whatever his name is, the YouTube guy versus KSI, another YouTube guy. And you know what could have happened in that fight? These guys are not professional fighters. You see multiple punches, and this is something that I've seen professional fighters and professional trainers that looked at that fight say, that the punches that are being thrown in that fight literally could have killed somebody. They were illegal, like when Logan Paul or Paul Logan, whatever his name is, hit KSI when he was down, coming straight down on the back of his head. That's a fight, that's a punch that could have ended with somebody dying. These guys are not professional fighters. They're not trained to take those type of shots. And they could very well succumb to in a bad situation because they're not professional fighters. So, but that was a gimmick, isn't it? That's a gimmick. That's not a fight that somebody's taking serious as a serious boxing match. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick, just like Floyd Mayweather Jr. walking into the ring with a ski mask on against Conor McGregor. That was a gimmick. Yeah, you get some fight. You got a couple fights on the undercard that were good fights. You got to see Badu Jack against Nathan Cleverly. You got to see Gervonta Davis against Francisco Fonseca. You saw some good fighters on the undercard, but the main event was a gimmick, right? This, my friend, is another gimmick. You have Demetrius Andrade on a Thursday night, right? A Thursday night Super Bowl week in Miami. They're there for the Super Bowl, but regardless, now you have the brother of the last YouTuber now fighting somebody that I understand is a FIFA. I think that's a professional football player. So, and that's the co-main event to Demetrius Andrade versus whoever Demetrius Andrade is fighting, and it's above the bit. It's I think you call that the penultimate event. It's the fight before last, and it is higher. It receives higher billing than probably the only decent fight, the only fair and decent fight on the card, which is Tevin Farmer versus Jojo Diaz. That's actually the fight that people want to see. So it's just another gimmick. It's a way to try to get cute, try to get cute, a way to try to get the attention of people. And yeah, I guess that's promotions. I guess that's promoting, but those are definitely not the things that were being promised by Dazn and by Eddie Hearn when they started this boxing thing. And again, the price is doubled. You're not getting significant fights. And in fact, I believe in Dazn at $20 a pop. $20 a pop for 12 months is $240 for the year. Okay, if you have 3 pay-per-views, right? 3 pay-per-views, that's pretty much the price of 3 pay-per-views, plus the 3 pay-per-views for Fox, plus all the shows that you get on Fox and all the shows that you get on ESPN. That cost is the same as what you're getting is what you're paying for DAZN. Pretty much all of the ESPN fights that are on regular ESPN, all of the SF1 fights, all of the Fox fights, and and 3 of the Fox pay-per-views for the year. You get all of that for the same cost that you have to pay to get DAZN and where YouTubers are fighting soccer players. But again, I'm not going to say that Dazn does not have good fights that occur. But overall, they are not living up to the promise that they've made when they were going to come to the United States and they were going to take over boxing, and you were going to make a pay-per-view unnecessary. Okay, I was happy that I paid for the Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz pay-per-view fight, because that was actually a good fight. That was actually a fight that I was concerned about Deontay Wilder as a Deontay Wilder fan. It was a fair fight. It was a real fight. One guy had the chance to beat the other guy by a decision. The other guy had a chance to knock him out or win by a decision. It was a real fight. Same thing with Sean Porter and Errol Spence Jr. That was a real fight between two highly competitive fighters that had drama. Same thing with the Jermell Charlo fight. Quite honestly, there's been some lower level fights on ESPN where I felt the same way. I felt that way about ESPN. Not even lower level fights. I felt that way about Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez versus Richard Comey going into that fight, right? And I got to see Terrence Crawford and Igis Kalvinakis and Teofimo Lopez versus Richard Comey on ESPN for free. And with the exception of maybe one or two fight cards on Dazn, that fight card was as good or better than all of them. So anyway, we'll see how the gimmicks continue to play out. But I'm telling you, if they keep doing this silliness and keep putting guys out there that shouldn't be fighting one another, something very tragic can happen if it already hasn't happened. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace. Enjoy your holidays.